These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. This episode of the Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Defend Security Cameras. Well, we just got done feeding the head of a 100-pound tuna fish to a couple giant sharks off of the back of this beautiful sailing vessel in an unnamed location in Panama. That's the first time I've ever been able to say that at the beginning of a podcast.
Yeah, I hope it's not the last.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we're actually now anchored out in Bahía Hermosa in Coiba. And it's a very spectacular place. We have a very calm night. So yeah, we're going to be here. It's amazing to see the sharks that are in this in this space. We're cleaning fish, and they're just coming right up to the boat, and pretty amazing beasts.
How closely connected is the story of this boat and your own story?
Okay, well, that's I guess it's a story of being on different boats. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's what happens after doing it a lot and being very insistent and trying to find the proper boat to do these types of expeditions. So we've been actually now running C'est La Vie for 11 years. And we've been riding all over Panama, and we've been involved in scientific expeditions and conservation efforts. And also we've been hanging out a lot with good people, with friends and family all over Panama and also in the region. We've gone to Costa Rica and Colombia. So the vessel has turned into this platform of experiences during the years, and I'm very thankful for that.
What type of scientific expeditions?
Well, we've been lucky. We've been working almost for 10 years, but we started working with STRI, which is the Tropical Institute connected to Smithsonian Institute. And so we've worked with different labs, and in each lab they have they definitely have a focus in an area or a specific type of research that they're doing. So we've gone from doing transects on coral and also measuring plankton levels and counting fish. We've actually with other teams we've done also turtle tagging. And a lot of recognition, where there's a point that we were going every year to certain spots to see what was the development with the corals, to see what has been happening in time, mm-hmm. What's feeding, what's the population of fish, and it's been just it's wonderful because you have people. I consider myself a science groupie.
Yeah.
So a lot of things go over my head, but I love to create this platform for people to be able to experience that type of work on board.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic use of it. Tell me about C'est La Vie, about the boat itself.
Well, C'est La Vie, I started seeing this boat. This boat was in a marina, and it was actually in Panama already 15 years ago. We established this business that now is a foundation that's called Gente de Mar. It's people of the sea. And our intention was to create a nexus for sailors, for mariners. And we ended up actually creating more of that. And we added on scientists and conservationists. And so we've been able to use the boat as a nexus. And when we found the boat, going back to the boat was sitting in a marina, and it was one of these boats that if you don't manage it or you don't use it, everything starts going badly because it has a very high level of maintenance. Mm-hmm. It's a marine steel, built in 1965. She's probably been abandoned or in very misuse several times in her years. And when we found her, actually I would go look to her in the marina. And also, just sit there and dream about a boat this type. So I sometimes make a joke that I kind of went and did a little bit of shaka and just kind of, so oh, this is going to be ours. This is the boat. So years after, it kind of landed on our knees, because not our knees, our, how do you call it?
Yeah.
On our lap. It landed on our lap. And we had to, we've changed mast, generators. It's just been ongoing work. It's a boat that once you finish, the maintenance in the bow, you start again in the stern, and so it's a small ship. It's a huge sailboat.
Yeah.
She has 79 feet overall length, and just very solid. 50 tons of steel. I don't think they'll make anything like this again. So it's good that we've given it I don't know if it's the third or fourth, but we've given her life again.
Yeah, and the last of her breed.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is.
What kind of weather have you been in with her? Any big storms?
Yeah, we're, I guess, lucky and unlucky in Panama. It's a place that we have very strong squalls. It's Panama. The region of Panama is a center of a lot of climate convergence. So it's home of the doldrums. So what we do get a lot is these very strong, or either southerlies. It's three big storms a year, but then we get these very small, short, very tempered squalls. And the boat, we still haven't seen anything, and I don't want to invite anything big to us.
Yeah.
But she handles very well in heavy weather.
Yep.
So a lot of people, when they tell me what are the worst moments or hardest moments, usually happens when the boat is still. And
yeah.
So yeah, the worst moments are really come from a lot of calm.
Right.
Yeah.
And when she's not under sail, she's powered by a John Deere diesel.
Yeah. Oh, very, very reliant. She's the heart of the boat. This boat, because of the lack of wind, sometimes we do a lot of motor sailing on the boat.
Yeah.
And so we depend a lot on the system. So that's where I consider the boat more of a ship. Because we have, just in any moment you start counting, there's probably more than 20 or 30 electrical motors, and then combustion engines, there's at least 3 or 4, and we got the generator and the water maker and the, so it's a lot of systems working together for us to continue having a good time here.
And for a trip like this, where we got a group of guys down here who are spearfishing, rod and reel fishing, adventuring. We're able to process fish, vacuum seal, freeze fish, keep everything on, in really good condition. We've got lots of ice on board. We've got fresh water on board. You have a freshwater maker as well?
Yeah, we have a water maker. And yeah, I guess the boat, the size, having a flush deck helps a lot. So we have a lot of working space on the boat when we do the science work or when we're fishing. It's a boat that we use as a work boat. So we can bring fish on board. We can bring all types of samples. We use the mast and the boom to bring up objects. We've used little cranes to take samples of the ground. And so the boat turns into just a working machine.
The reef that we were diving earlier today in the place where we've spent the last 2 nights, that looked like a really healthy coral reef to me, like some of the healthiest coral I've found anywhere in the world in recent years.
Yeah, well, Panama it's a pristine place. I haven't sailed a place that in such short distance you have so much diversity.
Right.
And you have it culturally, you have it in the ambient, in the environment. And that particular island is called Montuosa, and it's untouched, and it's surrounded by these very strong, the Pacific currents, basically. It's part of the corridor. So I think just the water that cruises by that island is just so clean, and it's very particular. Sad to say, nowadays it's very few beaches that you come and there's not trash on the beach. And this is one of those places that a lot of water passes through it, and luckily it's still almost free of garbage, which is very lucky nowadays. But it is. snorkeling today and having a great time, and it's just amazing the diversity that you see in just very small areas. And
It's incredible, and a tremendous abundance of parrotfish.
yeah, but Panama luckily is one of those places that we've been actually doing. We were together with Matthew Leary, which is a specialist in parrotfish, and we've been studying them for now I think over 4 years, and it's still a place that there's many of them, and the species and a lot of the types inside of the species are still, you can still see them in a proper size and in a healthy environment.
Mm-hmm.
So this team of researchers that I was talking about, we've done a lot of work with them in different places of Panama, and just taking out samples and even dissecting them on deck, and we were taking samples for the DNA, the RNA, for a lot of things that I don't understand, but plentiful of experiments. Also to realize, I don't know if you know, I know very little about it, but I know that the parrotfish, one of the things that is amazing is that they crush out what they eat, and they kind of munch on rock and different type of algae and also coral, and they turn it into sand. So they are sand producers.
Yeah.
And one of the studies that they've been conducting is to see how this type of fish can help corals survive, because they're actually eating the algae that's covering the coral.
Gotcha.
So they're trying to see what's the effects, and it takes a lot of observation, but it's a beautiful thing to be involved, and there's such a beautiful fish anyways.
You've got 20 acres, and your security camera can see about 50 feet from your Wi-Fi router. Your gate, your barn, your equipment, all the places you actually need to monitor, they're exactly where your Wi-Fi doesn't reach. That's where Defend security cameras make a lot of sense. They work on cellular, just like your phone. But here's what's clever. They've got an embedded SIM card that automatically connects to the best network in your area. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. It finds whatever's strongest. No choosing providers, no contracts, no hassle. I'm using Defend cameras at my place. You mount it, open the Defend app on your phone, and you're done. 10 minutes. Clear footage, night vision, instant alerts, and here's something you need to know. Defend doesn't sell your data. Not to China, not to tech companies, not to anyone. They work for you, period. Defend your place. As I was diving out there, I was spearfishing and really looking for grouper and snapper. And when I would land in the sandy spots and the little crevices between rock and coral, if you look closely, there's so much life within that coral as well. There's all kinds of little things that are peeking out at you.
Yeah.
And they just look so curious and innocent. I know what none of them are. And one of the things that I enjoy the most about traveling to places like this is that so much of it is brand new to me. I dive on these rocks and dive in these places, and I'm only there for a few seconds, and I get to see things that I did not know existed. And what a gift to get to observe in wonderment these organisms in this world that I'd never even heard of. I don't even know to put what to call all these little things.
Yeah.
And it's really, really special. And then you combine that, interesting observational experience with the blue water sheer chaos of the tuna experience. And, we've put 7 yellowfin on the boat in the last couple of days. We've done well. We've made a lot of meat.
Yeah, it's a very rich area, that's for sure. It's so beautiful. And what you were mentioning before, I'll give you an anecdote that actually I learned this throughout the years, is that you can go to many places, but the value of being able to just grab onto 1 square feet and look at it, and it's just mind blowing. Like the whole universe is in that square feet.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing how tiny fish just come out of a larva. And that fish is going to turn, 100 times bigger than what you're seeing there and that square feet. So you can always imagine just all that diversity just contained in this little space.
Yeah, observing the universe in a grain of sand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you grew up in Venezuela.
Yeah, I'm from Venezuela. I grew up. I was born in Caracas in 1975, a long time ago now, and I guess I've been lucky also because of the times that I lived in Venezuela to experience having a bit of an international lifestyle, just because of access and because of Venezuela. I guess as a lot of people that are listening know, is a oil-rich country and has gone through a lot of different turmoils and political adversities. And with 50 years that I've seen it change a lot. And I was able to enjoy the wonders of the nature of that country. Also, the warmth of our people and of our music and our food. And also kind of in a backside, because I haven't been there in the past 20 years. I've just gone to visit, see how things have changed and how dramatic it is for many people there.
What were things like there when you were a kid?
Well, I had a great time growing up. I grew up in front of a beach, so all our games were in the water, or either body surfing, or diving, or sailing with that. We didn't even learn to sail, but it was just the fun to bring anything up and create movement. So growing up in Venezuela was, I guess I'm happy to say that it didn't affect me what was going on ever. So if I didn't feel it, it was because everything probably was pretty good at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up close to nature, it always gives you all this, just this happiness, this extra happiness. Like I can only remember is just, the beach. One of the things that I remember from the work that I've done now and connecting it to my childhood is that we've done work cleaning beaches. We did a big project in Las Perlas about 3 years ago. And I had a flashback while I was cleaning up all these beaches that were full of junk, just plastic that had probably sailed for thousands of miles. We were getting bags from Peru in Panama. So, we don't remember how everything affects, even if it's far away, it ends up affecting somewhere else. But I remember very clearly that I did not have the memory of walking on beaches and finding garbage, but I did have the clear memory of being careful of not being stung by those little things. There's a plant that has it looks like a erizo, that thing that has a lot of just natural things that would grab onto your leg, or you would get scratched. And I have a clear image of never seeing garbage. It was just looking out for what was there in nature. So it's a big contrast how the coast has changed in that sense.
Yeah. And when did things start to turn politically there?
Well, I can talk for hours about this, but I guess in a nutshell, Venezuela. Some people, experts, that it's not me, but people call it that it has the curse of the resources. So Venezuela being an oil-rich country in the region, I guess it's a strategic point for energy and definitely for passage in the Caribbean. And after, it's hard to put it but we had because of the oil. I guess the oil marks a lot of the history of Venezuela. So after the oil was nationalized in the late 70s, we had a democratic government for over 40 years. That I guess because of corporate intention and capitalist gain, or just everything for the money, the country was divided and very strongly in the haves and have-nots, and that I think gave fertile land for a socialist government, which not necessarily is a bad thing, but mixed with with oil and military and powers to be corporates, and I guess it turned it into a sad situation. We actually have now more than 7 million people that have left the country, and it's the biggest refugee crisis without a war in the world.
Wow.
So it's hard to talk about politics when you actually are just talking about the suffering of people, and because of decisions that are made. It's hard to say now who and when it started, but the effects of it have been terrible to just common people. And being like anywhere else, it can be Venezuela like anywhere else. It's just sad that any place and any individual has to go through.
Did you personally experience violence there?
I guess I did, but growing up in Latin America, there's a tolerance for violence that is kind of inherent. Like you don't see it. It's a different type of violence because I haven't been in war. I haven't been. There is different types of violence, but I did experience firsthand. I've had guns in my back, and I've seen violence. It's happened to me, and you can see it very easily. Not so much, I guess, anymore because things have changed. But yeah, I don't know what's violence and then it's repression. I don't know which one is. They're both worse and evil and evil. So
right.
So, but yeah, I did experience. But it's also when you focus out. There's 25 million people waking up there every day, having breakfast, taking their kids to school. So it's all pretty relative. I would be careful to say, if it's not more violent than places that we actually think are not at all. Like
sure.
When we describe a developed country and an undeveloped country, there's levels of violence that are much more subtle. But it would be hard to say which one is worse.
The curse of the resources. So, what do you feel like are some lessons learned from sort of the fall of the Venezuela that you're born in, and then what happened? What could people have done differently there had they known what was going to happen, or do you think it's inevitable in a situation like that?
No, I don't think it's inevitable, if I can pronounce that right.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of comprehension of history and to be humble enough to know where you're coming from and to kind of foreshadow your future, and more when you have to manage a resource that it's just as powerful as oil. That that you're going to have interference from any type of direction, and you have wealth. So
right.
So if you're not careful enough, and I don't think anybody learns that. I think it's something that people start learning. But if you would have the pause, like when you're going to shoot a fish, if you have the calmness inside of you, I guess the process could be a lot better. You're going to have you're going to take it as you want to learn, you want to experience it, you want to be slow about it, and so I guess a lot of the wealth that oil has produced, and a lot of the wealth in our countries in Latin America, probably gets funneled or cheaply sold because of dynamics that that I don't understand.
Right.
I can feel, but I don't understand. But I do think it would be beautiful that people could take a pause and see what's most important for everybody. And without going into terms like communism or socialism, it's probably pretty common sense that if your neighbors and everybody's happy or doing fine, you're going to be able to walk that street and say hello, and so things should be a lot simpler, I would guess.
Do you feel like sailing gave you like a sense of peace and purpose coming out of that?
Yeah, sailing, I guess people always try to focus on your passion and to see if sailing is a vehicle that once again gives you time to pause. And as any other vehicle, as any other things, it's very complex. So it's a day-to-day thing. So you learn to pause a bit. So you're not running, you're not anxious. You're just starting to think on your day-to-day, and you have time to breathe, organize, and I guess to live. It's not so much about what you're thinking about, but it's about how you're doing your day-to-day. So when you're out sailing, a day of just going fishing and cooking your meal and having a laugh and a conversation, there's not too much more out of it. Then you're tired and you're and you're washing dishes and you're cleaning fish, and so I guess when you simplify things, you enjoy it a lot more. And sailing definitely has put me there. It's it kind of forces you in a good way to contemplate. I think one thing that I've always talk about is that also when you're moving, when you're on a boat, and if you're lucky, the wind is just throwing you, it's creating movement. Actually, your body, I don't know if we have a certain sense that if you're on something that's moving, you're already accomplishing something. So it already gives you a second seat, like you already have this chance to revise your environment, because you're already doing something, even though you're not actively, physically connecting to it. Or you don't have to engage physically, it's just moving and you're on this platform. So it just gives you all these moments of contemplation that I think there's none that changes your life, but there is just these little drops of it every day that you just get a chance to breathe in and be happy, just exist. I don't know if it's even happiness. It's just like, oh wow, I appreciate this a lot.
Well, I get to sample that. This is my second time aboard this vessel down here doing this trip, thanks to my friend Chef and Tony Dooley, who's guiding the spearfishing portion of this. It's interesting from my perspective because in some ways the existence when I'm here is a narrowing of the focus, right? The number of things that I need to accomplish or am able to accomplish in a day, it turns into a fairly short list because I'm on a boat, then I get on a smaller boat, and I go out and do the thing, and I come back to this one. But there's also a widening of the lens as well, where there's these long still moments to just look around and feel really present, and it's incredible to get to come do something like this and just let all that busyness and static from the rest of my life be out of reach, right? It just dissolves, and I think that's in my small amounts of time that I get to spend here. That's what I get to experience is both focus and a broadening of the lens. Incredibly special. It's amazing what just a few days of this can do for a person.
Yeah, I'm definitely not surprised. I love to hear it, and I'm curious to see, because also I guess as for you, for me, meeting people like you or getting out of this context, I think one of the things that I always come back to is being close to nature. So the boat, I'm happy to with our team and with everybody that comes here create this ambient, and the nature does the rest, of course. But for me personally, I also I love to wander. So if I get a chance, as you are getting in right now on this experience, I can only imagine doing close to the things that you do, the things that you're more accustomed to doing. Like for me now, this is Panama, and this is our territory. We visited a lot, but the experience that you're having, I kind of I live vicariously through you, and I also I guess I question. I'm going to ask you, how would it seem to me? Would you see similar if I'm in the mountains out with you doing hunting, which for me is something completely foreign?
I think about that all the time from my perspective as a guide, right? When I'm taking somebody hunting or I'm taking somebody fishing or whatever it is that I'm guiding them on, especially if they're brand new to it, I am so envious, and I often tell them, look, I would give all of my experiences away to be in your position to be experiencing this for the first time, because there's nothing like that.
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
And especially knowing what that would become for me, what hunting and what being outside would become for me. If I could get to experience that for the first time, knowing that it would be the passion of my life, and sharing that with other people would be the passion of my life, gosh, what a gift to get to do it all over again from the beginning. And the closest that we can get to that, for those of us who are lucky enough to have things like this as a profession, is to help other people get to have those experiences. And we get to sort of microdose that perspective, and it's pretty neat. It's really fun to watch people navigate that, and it's fun for me where I'm typically in your position of like organizing and caretaking and doing all the behind the scenes stuff. It's fun for me to be like the client and the customer, and I know a little bit about what's going on to make all of this possible, but it's such a different world that there's so much that I could never understand, right? Because I don't even know what I'm looking at with a lot of this stuff. But perspective and nuance.
So definitely, I'll get you on tape now. That it would be an honor to do the same thing. Inverse, to be guided by you, and in a place that for me is completely foreign and new.
That'd be fun. We're gonna have to wear more clothes there because it's probably gonna be a little colder. We won't be barefoot all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also. I mean, it was. There was frost on my windshield when I drove to the airport to come down here, right? So it's pretty nice to just be in warmth all the time. That's pretty gourmet. Except that you've also got air conditioning, so that's a pretty nice luxury for a vessel of this age.
Yeah, we're a bit spoiled, but yeah, definitely. Yeah. Right now, the season in Panama, it's May now, and we get to turn. They call it here the winter, but it's just a rainy season that lasts for a long time. And so we get now, this year we have a special Nino, so it's drier than usual. But yeah, the heat that you experience here is also very interesting. So I would guess it's the contrast of being in a blazing, ice coming on your windshield. It's like, we get the extreme also heat and suffocation of the tropics. But, it's the same thing. A good friend of mine told me, it's good to observe it, but you just let it go through you, You relax and sweat.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, totally. And I've been in, lots of climbs and places, and I, there's something to enjoy about almost all of it, whether it's hot and humid, hot and dry, freezing cold, somewhere in between. Yeah, rain, snow, or shine. There's always something to do and something to enjoy about it. Yeah. You mentioned to me that a place that you would like to go to that you haven't been would be doing a crossing and sailing into some new territory. Yeah,
I've been lucky, and we've done it with several trips that are either not for fun, but we've done an expedition. Actually, I think we talked about a boat that split in half last night.
Yeah.
So I have this anecdote. Well, I had a chance to travel in a reed boat, and that was years ago in 2001.
What is a reed boat for the folks that don't know?
Okay, a reed boat, actually, they kind of timed this, and just way in the past before wood was worked. It was like they have some idea that Phoenicians were using this type of navigation, but a reed boat, a reed or papyrus, is like a little straw that's full of fibers, and you can actually tie it up and make a float out of it. It's almost a sponge, and they when I was involved in the project, they brought indigenous people from the Lake Titicaca, and they have actually islands there, and they use this type of vessels to move around in the lake, and they came to build this in a bigger size because I guess there was a well-known adventurer called Thor Heyerdahl in the Kon-Tiki stories, and this is kind of that type of. They did first with draftwood, or I'm getting the word wrong, balsa wood, and they did a raft out of balsa, and then they started using this technique, which is gathering all this papyrus. It's been used for ages, and made a sailing vessel. So we were actually with an A-shaped mast sailing with this thing. It was 20 meter long, didn't have any bolts or screws. It was just completely all nature fibers, and it was just amazing. It was done for an expedition. It probably had a bit of a gimmicks for brands and for adventure. But just being in the presence of this boat was just, completely overwhelming and humbling. It's just such a beautiful, like, we fell in love with this, with the vessel itself, just all that energy. So sailing, I don't know why I went to that boat, but well, I guess, through the years, just being on different types of vessels, you get to admire so many techniques and so many, just the whole history that's been on vessels. Like, I guess it's what made things happen was the possibility of being able to cross oceans. So I've had the opportunity to cross the Pacific. I've crossed the Atlantic. My first real voyage or long voyage was at 16. That I crossed from Venezuela to Spain.
Wow.
In 92. And I kind of just jumped in on a boat. I was really eager, young, and I felt it was just a beautiful way to disconnect and travel. It's just a way to be able to move from one place to another. So that's when I had a really just big jump into the whole sailing. But I always did it not so much for competition and performance, more for just being out there and being able to move freely. So definitely, just the fact of, aside from the passionate side of the wind and the sun and the sunsets, it's also this pragmatic, vessel to disconnect, to be as self-sustainable as possible, even though, of course, you're always going to be connected. But I had a good friend of mine that used to say that when you're out there in the middle of the ocean, for us common people, it's the closest thing to be on a spaceship. So because you're completely independent, you have all these systems from basic pulleys to advanced satellite beaconing that you're you just have all this in front of you, and when you start doing crossings, it's very, very beautiful that in a month you can be sitting anywhere in any office or in any place, but when you're moving, in a month you are not in Panama, now you're in Asia.
Yeah.
So I had a chance to do those Polynesians, and I loved sailing that area. It's just a wonderful place. It's an interesting place also because it was one of the last places to be, I guess, in between quotes, civilized. But
right.
It's just very curious, the history and the movement of these islands. And now I'm interested of doing Asia, and I guess Asia for me is. I guess it's the oldest, or I just respect a lot just the history that it has, and for us Americans, or the people that are on the American side of the world, Americans meaning the whole continent, we're very young,
right?
And also I guess because of, I don't know if it's politics or just regular. Let's not go into that, but we know very little about Asia,
right?
So going there and sailing, I would just love to just see it firsthand and go from the extreme futuristic or developed cities like Hong Kong, and then just go, just kind of cruise along on these islands that nobody touches, and it's just full of wonderful places. And I'm very curious of that part of the world now.
It'd be incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a great trip.
So, I guess this vessel, let's see what more routes it brings us. There's also a very interesting trip that I would love to do as this boat is to go around the Horn and do South America.
Yeah.
And that excites me just because, I guess it's my home. I feel that South America has a lot to do with who I am. And I would like to sail it, just it's a beautiful way to get to any place is to go. You're like a turtle, you have your home, you land in a place, you can move around freely, and and definitely would like to do that trip as well.
Would you go all the way around Tierra del Fuego, or would you go through this? Is it the Strait of Magellan?
Yeah. It's it's a hard thing because definitely I don't have anything to prove. I would just love to see how the ocean acts in that when you are doing the Cape Horn, you're actually in the place that the wind doesn't stop. You can have the biggest waves, the situation is very particular to that spot. So I guess if I would do the outside route, I would like to even go to Antarctica, go to Deception Island. Like I would just want to do the jump.
Yeah.
But I'm also very curious to see in the canals of Magellan and just, apparently it's just incredible beauty. And So, why not? I would do both.
Sure.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
It's an experience worth doing the two sides.
Yeah, it is incredible country. I've got to spend a little bit of time in Tierra del Fuego, and it's unlike any place else in the world by a long shot.
Yeah, I definitely. My first boat, it was called the Welche, and I didn't know. And then I, of course, found out. Oh, well, when I bought the boat, or when I didn't even buy it, I think I had to repair it, and somebody gave it to me. But it was a boat designed in Argentina, built in Argentina, by a famous designer called Freres. But the curious was the name. Apparently, there has been a lot of Tehuelches, and Tehuelches, in little that I know, is one of the tribes south, very south of Patagonia, Tierra del Fuego, and if I'm not mistaken, well, aside from being very huge people, like they were hunters and gatherers and lived in very extreme weather, I think Shackleton bumped into them when he was trying to get, when he was surviving that long trip that he did.
Yeah, there's rumors of giants there from lots of different explorers.
It comes from from this lineage called the Tehuelches, and I only wonder because I don't have the knowledge, but I can imagine them in cold weather, very tall men, fishing and hunting, and I guess it was just to survive that area you had to be very strong.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Interesting. Well, there's two things going on here right now. One is that it looks like there's some fresh tuna sashimi back there in the stern of the boat.
Yeah,
and
so we're missing out.
We need to go get involved in that before these heathens eat it all. Two, if somebody is interested in having an experience on this vessel down here in Panama or in any of the places that you operate in, how do they get a hold of you?
Okay, this is not a good thing for nowadays, but I am hard to get a hold on sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. But, well, we have a website that you can check out. Very simple. We haven't dedicated too much to that whole world, but it's called, we're called Gente de Mar, which is called People of the Sea. And the foundation is Fundación Gente de Mar. And through Tony and also through you, I welcome you guys to always contact me. We've been lucky also that we are doing always people that we know and people word to mouth. So it's very special to get here. But I think if you're curious, you'll get to me and to you. We're here.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue in the area, and we move. One of the things that this boat is very special is that we also go to the Caribbean. So depending on the schedule and the time of year, we're someplace else in Panama.
So Gente de Mar is spelled GenteDemar?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So, folks, you can search that. And if you're still struggling to get a hold of Juan, just reach out to me, and I'll knock on his door for you.
Yeah. I'll definitely open and answer. Sometimes it takes a few days, but I'll answer.
No, that's all good. Well, sir, I've so appreciated you taking care of us. Looking forward to, bunch more days of adventure down here, and hope we continue putting fish on the boat. I'm sure we will. And for now, let's go get involved in this sashimi.
Hey, thank you so much, man. For me, it's been it's my first podcast. So,
you crushed it. You're natural.
So I actually appreciate this interaction.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, let's go hit some tuna.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. Bye, everybody.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.